So have you ever found yourself, in the zone, like in the flow, able to just do all kinds of things and really just be super productive and super creative? Well, let's actually take a look at the idea of creative flow and what that actually is. There's actually a lot of research around it. Actually a lot of neuroscience, and you can actually control your ability to be in flow and to be absolutely more creative and more effective in absolutely everything that you do, whether it be physical or mental, at work, at play, whatever it is that you might want to do. It's absolutely possible. So let's dive into it. So flow, number one, is a state where you're being like fully immersed in activity. Effort just feels effortless and time warps and productivity peaks. It actually feels like time is just gone away before you know it. You spent hours really doing something. This was really first brought forth by a psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He was a Hungarian psychologist, and he really described flow as the optimal experience where skill meets challenge in really an idea of perfect harmony. It's almost the idea where not only your brain, but you and the universe become as one, and things just sort of, it almost feels like it's not even you that is doing whatever it is, whether it's a performance or writing or some type of physical thing. It feels like something comes through you, and that's actually kind of what happens. It's often called being in the zone, and it's really the flow of the hallmark flow of peak performance in creativity, sports, and really work. So there's some really interesting neuroscience that happens here. One thing let's take a look at is with the neurochemicals that are really in the aspect of flow. What is happening here? So number one is dopamine, which increases focus, enhances pattern recognition, motivates engagement. So what it really does is it allows us to kind of put two different things together. It allows us to see that this really has a correlation with that, and it sees the interconnected nodes of those things, and allows us to really be able to think sort of like outside of the box. Endorphins, and those act as natural painkillers, creating feelings of euphoria. So that comes in handy, even in mental exercises, but also in physical exercises as well. Because as we're going about to see, that whether you're really doing something physical or mental or really kind of both, there can be a certain amount of discomfort that's involved. So endorphins does help there. Anandamide is a lateral thinking, enables novel connections and creativity. It's this idea that we have two sides of our brain, and there's a bridge in between it. It allows better communication between those two sides, between our creative and our more critical thinking sides, for those two sides to kind of come together and mesh. And if you actually do like brain scans, you'll see that there's like this uniformity that's happening where like all parts of the brain are really firing almost in equal parts, rather than it just being really concentrated on one part of our brain. Our whole brain is involved. So that way we have like all of our little beautiful brain folds in flow and in being used, so that recesses we may not have used before and ideas and really correlations we may not have had before are now able to kind of find each other and really work together. Serotonin, which enhances calm, mood stability, and contentment, because the idea of flow is really to get out of that fright or flight zone that we're in. Because so many times, like if we have a deadline or there's something we need to do or something just pops on our desk, or maybe we were kind of procrastinated and we have a project to do, and now we have like this definite timeline that happens. What can happen if we're not prepared is that we move into this fight or flight, and then we're not working with our higher critical thinking. We're really thinking with our amygdala, which is more of like our lizard brain, which is really more about, either defending ourselves or running away, which is not really a very great space for really a creativity space where we can be really super, creative. And this neurochemical cocktail really creates this high that can reinforce the state of flow and really builds resilience. The brain, what it's doing actually in flow, the prefrontal cortex slows down in a process called transient hypofrontality, which silences that inner critic and that self-doubt. It really shuts that down so that we're no longer hearing that voice that's telling us that we're not enough, and we're giving us imposter syndrome and all these other things, like we just cannot do this. That really shuts down so that all it is there is really the the potential and the possibility, and that idea, almost like your inner coach comes forward and says, you absolutely can do this. And this downregulation frees the brain to focus fully on the task at hand without overthinking or fear of failure. You know how sometimes when you'll be thinking of doing something and the whole time you're thinking of, why it won't work rather than possibilities of it will. And the brain is really interesting because whatever you tell the brain is true is actually what it will try to substantiate with actual proof. If you tell the brain that something is possible, that it's only going to look for ways that it is possible. If you tell the brain that it is not possible, it's going to find every single way that it is not possible. And then that is where you're really working from. Now, there's also different brainwave states. Brainwave states are things like, when you're in your sleeping patterns, when you're in a wake pattern, when you're in a hyper-focus pattern. There's actually different brain patterns that can actually be really scoped out in these different stages of flow. One is the beta wave, which is dominant during conscious analytical thinking, but less prominent in flow. Then we have the alpha waves, which are associated with a relaxed, calm state of focus, and really bridging the conscious and the subconscious. So these two are kind of in interplay. And theta waves, they're linked to creativity, intuition, and deep insight, often found during meditation or daydreaming. It's almost like if we get out of the way, then flow can just kind of happen and the universe can kind of come through us and do special things, which is actually what's happening. But in flow, the brain shifts between alpha and theta waves, creating this state of relaxed alertness where ideas can flow effortlessly. So what are some of the definite benefits of achieving flow? There's cognitive benefits, enhanced pattern recognition due to dopamine-driven neural connections, like I was talking before, where it allows those things that wouldn't necessarily talk to each other, those ideas that wouldn't necessarily come together, or those concepts, or perhaps a piece of wisdom that you gained about this one thing, and then you got this piece of wisdom about some other thing that's not even at all interconnected anyway. And then all of a sudden you see the bridge between it. You're like, oh, well, I could like put peanut butter in my jelly and have a great sandwich. There was, believe it or not, there was a day before peanut butter and jelly came together, and then somebody decided to put that together. Well, that's kind of the idea of it. It's where you take these two separate things and then you put them together, and then you have this third beautiful thing that's made out of the conglomeration of both of those together. And it helps with improved problem-solving skills through lateral thinking and increases the ability to focus deeply on tasks. So the amazing thing is that if you really study the idea of flow and the idea of creative flow and also the stages of flow, what can happen is that it's like a muscle that you build. And you just get better and better at it. It becomes more of your natural way of really working through things. And it just helps you to be more performative. It helps you to be more successful. It helps you to be happier because you're getting all those things done that you want to get done, and they're getting done easier, and you're having more fun doing it. There's also emotional benefits in the boosted happiness and reduced stress from serotonin and endorphins. The greater emotional resilience as flow quiets overthinking and negative emotions. You really get to, you learn how to live in a moment where you don't have those overthinking negative emotions, which for some of us is a huge relief, and you get a sense of mastery and accomplishment. Sometimes it's really great just to make yourself a checklist, even if it's a really simple checklist, like, do the laundry or clean the floor. Or sometimes I might get a checklist of like even just the smallest little things, because there's just something in the brain that loves just checking off that little thing, even if it's something even kind of small and inconsequential. Just the task of doing that really helps us to feel like, we really have got a handle on whatever it is. So if you're ever feeling like kind of out of control, make yourself a very simple list of things, whether it's like, picking up a piece of paper or putting a dish in the dishwasher, or just something really super simple, really easy to accomplish. Give yourself like 10 things on a list like that, and then just mark them off as you do it. And you'll be surprised at how that just those little simple tasks that you're probably going to do anyway can give you such a sense of mastery over your day. And then before you know it, you want to accomplish so much more, because then you get into the flow of it, and then your brain starts really understanding that feedback loop, and before you know it, that's just who you become. Part of the physical benefits of this is lower cortisol levels, reduce stress, and enhance physical recovery. It's really the blocking of flow and the restriction that stops us from having that physical recovery, and it's about adding in all those extra stress hormones that then have to be flushed out, and that takes extra effort for the body. And the body sometimes it takes all its energy and all its effort just to flush out stress and anxiety hormones, and then there's nothing left for actual life and enjoyment. Relaxed muscle tension and improved heart rate variability is also seen during flow. It's interesting how it's actually not healthy for the heart to have a constant rate. It actually is healthy for the heart rate to actually be very variable, and the flow helps to do that. So there's 4 steps to flow, and we're going to go through what those are, and we're going to kind of look at what they look like, and also how to be very conscious of it. And the reason to be very conscious about the 4 steps of flow is because the actual flow step is only one of the 4 steps, but it's kind of like the Hollywood step. It's the step that's the fun one. It's the step that's the sexy one. It's the step that everyone wants to be in. But there's 2 steps before it, and then there's a step after it. And some of these steps are not as fun. Perhaps they're not as coveted, but they all are equally important to each other. And flow could not show up if it wasn't for the other one. It's kind of like the idea of if you have the star quarterback, well, the star quarterback could not be successful unless he had all those other people, from his coach to the water boy to all these other, people and things and processes would have to be there in place in order for him to accomplish or her to accomplish whatever they're going to accomplish. So it's the same thing with the stages of flow. So it's important to learn about them and learn kind of what they feel like, so that you're not judging yourself by not being in a state of flow or pushing yourself to be in flow before you're quite ready. So the first the first stage of the 4 stages of flow is preparation. This is where you're setting clear goals. You know what you want to accomplish, and you set yourself little mini goals. Let's say you were going to go run for a marathon. Well, you would first want to be able to do, a mile, and then you'd want to be able to do, 2 miles maybe, and then maybe you'd want to do a 5K run, and then maybe you'd want to be able to do a 10K run. So you would be making yourself these little quote unquote mile markers. You're making yourself these little points of success along the way. And so if you have a larger goal of, say, running a marathon, and right now you're not even hardly walking, so that's a huge goal, it would be important to set yourself up these smaller goals, and you would actually have stages of flow for each of these smaller goals, right? So the first one is preparation. This is where you are, and in this one, you're really aiming for tasks that are challenging but achievable to maintain engagement. So that's why you might have a very large goal, and you want to knock it into smaller goals, so that you don't ever lose faith or lose really hope or anything like that. But in this state, let's say it is a marathon. In this state, preparation is you getting physically, mentally, emotionally ready, right? So I know from running, it's so much more than physical. A lot of it is just mental, being able to just keep running, especially if you have a longer mileage goal. It can get a little bit repetitive, and you can tend to maybe get boring to you, but you can find your mental strength in being able to continue to maintain that. Now, let's say that your goal is something like to finish a certain class at school or something like that. Okay, that's going to be more mental. So preparation might be learning the subject, or perhaps you're writing a paper. So maybe first of all, it's finishing your outline, and then so on and so forth. So it's whatever you are creating, using your flow state to create or to accomplish or whatever, all of it has to do with preparation, whether it's mental, physical, combination of both, or, whatever. It depends upon, what it is, but most likely it's always going to contain something mental. It's probably going to contain something physical in that. But this is a state where this is kind of like the struggle state, really, honestly, because especially if you're doing something that has anything to do with mental, you're having to change your neuro pathways, and that can be actually kind of painful. Or growing muscles, that can be actually kind of painful, and you might have stages along the way where you're in a little bit more pain than others, and it can be really kind of a struggle just to keep going and keep just chugging along, to be in preparation for whatever it is that you're wanting to accomplish. So that's the first state, is the preparation of it. Getting all your things in line, getting all your resources, actually, trying to grow the skill set for it, create the muscle memory, all those different types of things. That's what the preparation stage is. Now, stage two might be a little bit surprising. Stage two is actually relaxation. Okay, because step one is very conscious. It's very, it's very in your prefrontal cortex. It's very much like, you're doing. It's the doing, right? That's the first step, is the doing. You're doing it. You're very conscious about it. You're pushing. But step number two is the being. This is where you go into a relaxation. You're really shifting from a beta brainwave activity, which is stressful, analytical thinking, to more of the alpha and the theta states. You might practice focused breathing or short meditations to really teach the mind how to relax and let go, because it can be really hard to shift, especially if you are a very, thinking person or overthinking person. This can be a lot of work for you too, to learn how to relax, to learn how to let go. And part of that is us thinking that it's all up to us. And really, it's really not, all of it up to us at all. It's really about letting go, stepping into that grace to allow, the universe, and really allow your own skill set to really kind of come through, and your own intentions and your own focus to really come through and help to keep you going. It's almost like you're in a huge ocean liner, and you've really pushed through, and now is your time to just sort of like coast, between channels. You've spent all this energy, spinning the propellers and really going fast. Now you just have to kind of like cruise for a little bit. And that can be a lot of work for a lot of people. In this one, you really want to step back, and you want to perhaps use a little bit more visualization techniques to really mentally immerse yourself into the task that you're doing. You really want to see yourself achieving at the end whatever it is, perhaps actually in the process of doing, and then maybe actually, finishing in the way that you want to finish. But relaxation can be all kinds of things. It can be, taking your pet outside, or going for a walk in nature, or, listening to some relaxing music or whatever. But this is really about the step back. It's about just the being, and it's about having faith and really stepping to a sense of grace. All right, step three is the actual flow state. This is where you really immerse yourself in the task. You find yourself fully committed to the task. There's no multitasking. Allow yourself just kind of like enjoy the process, and not just the outcome, but actually the whole process of it. And you might recognize that self-consciousness really fades away, and this action really becomes sort of seamless. If you've done preparation in the correct way, and you've also done enough relaxation, you might find that this is just sort of like, you're just kind of coasting in this one really as well. But you're coasting, but in motion, because you've done so much preparation, in this state, and time seems to just kind of stand still, and before you know it, so much time has gone by. Now, the next part is really, really important for us to understand, that the next part is, because we all want to stay in flow 24/7, and that's not possible, because there's lots of like chemicals and things that we're using. There's lots of energies in the body that we're using that need to be replenished. This is why a lot of times people might turn to things like cocaine or other things that really keep them in that state of flow. And then what happens is they're using up all these neurochemicals, that just, and it gets exhausted. And then what also happens is that these neurochemicals become less and less effective, because it's like you keep pushing a button, and before long you just kind of break that button. And so that it really needs a time for it to really to kind of relax, and to go back to stasis, and for all of the waste chemicals to really be able to be flushed out of the system. So in this period, it's really recovery, because flow can be very demanding, and this is really, you need to really kind of schedule yourself time for rest and reflection afterward. Perhaps it's a time, if you are a very busy person, perhaps in this recovery state, you're simply doing another type of task. Like you're no longer using the things, the skills, and all of that you used in this 4 stages of flow. So in a way, this can be recovery, because you're kind of focusing on something else. You're giving that part a break, and now you're working on that. And on here, you can really reflect. You can kind of like look back a little bit to really see, what perhaps did work, what didn't, how you might want to prepare better next time or relax better next time. But really, this is a time to bask as much as you can in the accomplishment, but also understand that there's going to be a little bit of regret that you're no longer in flow, and to understand that this is absolutely so important as a part of this process. And here you can really practice gratitude, really solidify those positive emotions that are associated with the experience, because you really want to you want to practice, and you want to get your brain, you want to get your whole system into this idea that these 4 stages of flow and this type of flow is the way to success. And as you learn that this is the optimal way to really get things accomplished, it just sort of becomes how you do things. And that just becomes your natural flow, is what I was going to say. So there's many applications for this flow, many people that kind of just naturally do it. And but for a lot of people, it's a learned process. You find that in creative professions, which is a lot of what I do, is like writers, artists, musicians, they use this flow to really overcome blocks and innovate. If a great musician, you've used all this preparation time to learn how to, play your music or use your equipment or your voice, whatever. You've spent a lot of preparation time. And you probably find a way to relax before performance. And then in the performance, you're just kind of like in this flow, because it's such muscle memory. You're just so used to it. And you've practiced so much, it just becomes easy. In sports and performance, athletes, most of them spend an awful lot of time, number one, getting physically, mentally ready, but also mental visualization is a lot of ways. That's why like when they're practicing or like studying plays and things like that in football before they go out in the field, a lot of that is visualization. A lot of that is just kind of seeing in a different way what that looks like, these different moves. And that really gets these patterns going in the brain of like, they can see themselves actually doing it. They can see that actually happening. And the more and more they practice that, it becomes part of their muscle memory and a part of how they do it. There's been lots of studies actually done where they did a study where they had people with a piano. They had people that didn't do anything. They had people that simply watched it and understood the basics of piano playing, but never actually played the piano. And then they had those that actually played the piano. And they found out that as they measured their brain activity, they found out that those who never actually played the piano had the same parts of their brain that activated as those that actually played the piano. And it didn't happen with the ones that didn't do anything. So you can see that the brain responds in the same way, simply through visualization. It can grow our same neural pathways and really grow those same things. A lot of people will use this in a way to really enhance their meditation and their learning and their emotional resilience. Doing this can really help you to see yourself as somebody that's successful, that can really take charge of your own life and get through and do the things that you really need to and want to do. So it's really important to learn how to create yourself a flow routine. You might want to bring in journaling, breathing exercises, or specific music perhaps that can trigger your flow. You can have a piece of music that helps you with the preparation stage, and then one that helps you with the relaxation stage, then perhaps one that you use in flow, and then one in the recovery stage. You could create this whole playlist, and music it just does something to us. That resonance and the frequencies can absolutely put us in certain frames of mind. And if our brain learns that certain frequencies and certain melodies and things like that mean a certain thing, and that's just naturally the way we get into it. That's why lullabies and nursery rhymes really help, because we just train the baby's brain to realize that this means this is where you go. And so you play that, and they instantly start to move into that pattern. And you can actually start to perhaps create yourself a flow journal, so you can notice what tasks and environments or activities bring you into flow, which ones block you, and what to really be careful of and mindful of. And this really helps you to practice mindfulness. It trains your brain to stay in the present, and it really trains your brain to understand what your true power is from, and how you can actually get things really accomplished. Exercising regularly can be a really great way to make sure that everything is just in optimal state and really moving forward in the best way. But it comes down to that flow can be a superpower. It's not just about peak productivity. It's about really living more fully and more presently in life, and being more in an empowered state. Carolyn Mace talks about that the Buddhist idea of the worst thing to have happen to you, the worst thing is for you to lose your power. And the way she teaches it, I truly believe it myself, the loss of power is really more of a personal choice than something about your situation. You can find your power place in almost any situation in life, no matter what's happening to you or what somebody else might be doing to you. You still have the ability to exercise your own power through your awareness and through your responses and things of that nature. So it helps you to stay in that idea of really finding your power and staying in your power and being at a place where you're really living more fully, more presently, and more engaged in your own existence. And it really makes it, when you study the idea of it, this combination of neuroscience and this deliberate practice, it really makes this flow state really accessible to anyone. It's just about practicing it, believing it's possible for you, and stepping in and just doing it. It's not something that you can buy or that somebody can give to you. It's something that you can be taught, but it's still something you have to do yourself. It's something you have to earn through your own experience. So I'd love to know if any of you, if y'all have ever followed your flow state, if you've worked with flow state before, or perhaps what it feels like for you when you are in flow state, and perhaps what you have accomplished. We'd love to hear about that. Let me know what it is that you're wanting to try practicing flow state with. I'm going to put a link to a book that I wrote about the flow state. It has to do also with angelic magic, because I do work with the angels. So it's kind of a combination of both, but it's available on Amazon KDP. Would love for you to see if that book resonated with you. Please do subscribe to the channel and like, comment, and share. And please let me know what else you might be interested in hearing about. Until later, love, peace, and release.